Today I'm obviously speaking, and I'm hoping not to rush through this because, the first time I ever gave a sermon, I had left it at home, and for those that don't know me, I'm super introverted, even though it might not seem like that. And then I had read at least 20 to 30 minutes of stuff to say, and I was so nervous that I read through the whole thing in 9 minutes and 55 seconds. And then I had told Eris that I'm never doing it again, and clearly I held to that promise. But hopefully this is the last. Hopefully, but you'll see. So today I'm going to be talking about why we need the Sabbath and what it means. And there's quite a few points that I'm going to be talking about. But so when someone asks you what does the Sabbath mean to you, and why we need it, why does it exist, what first comes to your mind? Because some people say God wants our praise and stuff, and he needs our praise. But God existed long before any of us existed, so he can't need our praise to live. And some people say we're supposed to go to church on Sabbath, but that's as far as it really goes. You're supposed to do it, but no one really knows why. So today, hopefully by the end of this, I can answer some of the questions. So there's many reasons why we need the Sabbath, but one of my favorite reasons is because God wants to have a relationship with us. That's kind of like a friend. So you can't really have a relationship with someone that you never spend time with. So originally God created the Garden of Eden for us to live in, and he would interact with us every day. But then obviously Eve was deceived and ate the fruit, and then sin happened. So then his plan to spend time with us was ruined. So then after that, Sabbath became even more important because that was a day that we all cease all our work. We don't go shopping, we don't clean our house, we don't clean our rooms, thankfully. And we can go to church and spend time with God. So think about it kind of like this, most Christians and the goal is we want to be like Jesus, but you can't, and all of us know this saying, by beholding you become changed, but you can't really become something you don't spend time with. So, we have morning worship and sometimes evening worship, but just that alone is clearly not enough. And so, think about this, Jesus wants to be my friend, so morning and evening worship's kind of like a phone call. You call your friends and stuff, but then eventually you want to do more than just call your friends on the phone. You want to eventually meet them. And Sabbath is kind of the day to go meet Jesus in a way. And why we're supposed to rest is how would you feel if you went to meet your friend and then they decided, oh, well, I've had some housework I didn't get done, so it's nice to meet you, but yeah, I need to go do this. Or, yeah, we're busy, we decided to go out to eat. Or, yeah, I really wanted to paint my shed because the neighbor keeps annoying me about it and saying how it's ugly and that they're going to call someone and just be bothered with it. So, and that's kind of how God feels when we don't spend Sabbath with him. We might go to church and stuff, but then after all, we rush to do church, we don't really care exactly, and then we go off and do other things and forget about God. And God has feelings too, we don't want to ignore them. Obviously he's God, and we're obviously disappointed sometimes. He calls us sheep, and if you know anything about sheep, that's not a very good thing.
Amen.
Our friends had sheep, and I luckily was not there to experience this, but they had gotten out in the night, and then my two friends were chasing them all night, well, not all night, but trying to get them back to their pasture, and they are complete morons. So now some people can go to the other extremes and say so Sabbath's supposed to be completely about God and nothing else. And me and my sister were visiting our grandma in a church down in Atlanta, and she asked us what we do on Sabbath. And at home, we'd usually go for a hike in the woods or something. So we confidently answered, "Oh, we go for a hike with our parents." And she was like horrified. She was like, "Oh no, honey, we can't do that. We must sit on our porch and watch the birds silently." And me and Elizabeth were kind of stunned. We were like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, we don't want to do anything that distracts us." So people can go to the opposite extremes. Some people go shopping on Sabbath, and some people do nothing on Sabbath. But God wants Sabbath to be like a day we enjoy, not like a day that we like dread and go through. A story about kind of like dreading. Have any of you read like Little House on the Prairie books? So one time Laura, she was complaining about, well, it was Sunday, but she was complaining about like why they couldn't do stuff. And then Paul told her a story of one time when he was younger, he and his brothers, after church one day, they had snuck out. It was the winter time, and they liked to go sledding, but they weren't supposed to. So their Paul was taking a nap, so they had snuck it out to go sledding. So they were sledding down this hill, and then a pig had gotten loose. And so while they're going down this hill, the pig gets in front of them, and they hit the pig, and the pig's like, they're on the sled going down the hill with a pig in their lap, and then suddenly they see their paw standing in the road with his belt. And yeah, you can imagine what happened after that. So that's kind of a funny story that kind of like, we don't need to like not do anything fun on Sabbath, but I just thought it was funny. So my point basically why we need Sabbath is like, if we do want to have a relationship with him, we do need to put in the effort to have a relationship with him. And you can't just like ignore him, because eventually a relationship like can last for so long with like minimal contact and stuff, but eventually you'll move on and find more important things, and then that'll seem less and less and less important until you subconsciously might do it and without realizing it, but eventually you'll start pushing Jesus out of your life because he'll become the least important thing to you. Because like you might rather do something with like your actual friends, and then eventually like you're completely ignoring Sabbath, and then after a while then there's gonna be like why? Like there's no point in going to church because like you don't get any blessing for it. It just seems like a waste of time, and you could be doing other things that seem more important. Like Genesis 2:2 says that God rested on the Sabbath day. And like God rested, so can we. This means that he set aside a whole day to spend with us. He created us to live in the garden and spend a long time, but then we sinned, and you all know the story, so I won't explain the whole thing again. But after we fell, God still wanted to spend time with us. And we originally were created in God's image, and if we hadn't fallen, we would be around him so much more, so it would be way easier to be like him, because he would have a greater influence in our lives. But then after we lost our connection with him, the Sabbath is even more important because we need the connection with him. And because our world's so full of sin today, and like if you watch the news, like terrible things are always happening. Also, another kind of interesting fact about like resting is there is a researcher who studied a group of beavers, and his name was Larry Cole, and he observed for 16 years that a specific clan of beavers, that on the Sabbath they didn't come out of their lodges, they didn't do any work, and he observed this for a long time because to make sure that there was actual fact. Other people have also observed in other animals that elephants seem to rest on Sabbath, and bees do. There's studies of other animals that seem to do it, but like it's not nearly as consistently, so I won't use them. Also, some of these research were done by people that weren't actually Seventh-day Adventist, so it's not likely to be biased in our favor. The one Larry Cole, he is Seventh-day Adventist. And the whole concept of like resting on the seventh day is like goes like way back, like when you first created, and like the Israelites, because every 7 years in Israel, it was the sabbatical year, Shemitah. I'm not Hebrew, I can't say that. But every 7th year was that. And what it meant was like, fields of that follow, like, that means like you don't plant anything or harvest anything. But like what grew naturally was free for like everyone to take. Because obviously people still had to eat and stuff. And it doesn't matter like if you're rich or poor, like everything was everyone's. And that's between the Israelites who were forgiven. And like I said, what grew naturally was free for everyone, including poor animals. And what this meant was it reset like agricultural production cycles, and it gave like the soil a rest, because like some crops are really healthy for soil, and like if you keep planting them year after year, eventually they like suck the nutrients out of all the soil. And my dad's a gardener, and he can tell you all about that. Sometimes we're kind of disappointed how much he likes gardening, because that is a lot of weeding. But this is also kind of a fun fact. Like if you plant like different crops in the soil, alternating years, some crops like they take from the soil, but other crops like they replenish the soil. So it balances things out. And why thus every 7 years like debts were forgiven was like that was to prevent like debt slavery, because like if you had to borrow money from someone, then we're trying to pay it back. If you're using all your money to pay back the debt, you weren't making money for yourself, so then you had to borrow more money, like so you could live. So then you just kept getting more and more and more in debt. So then eventually, back then, like whoever you owed a debt to, they basically owned you till the debt was paid off. And God had delivered them out of Egypt, and He didn't really want them just escaping slavery, just to enslave themselves. So that's why debts were forgiven. And then it gave everyone a chance to start anew and then try and be more sustainable for themselves. There was like some downsides to that, because the greedy people would be more hesitant if they knew like the 7th year was coming to be willing to lend money to people. But overall, it was intended. Well, if we were all in God's image and weren't selfish, it was intended to help everyone, and it did for the most part. Also, another aspect of like why I think Sabbath is like the 7th thing is like the health aspect of it, because like the number 7 shows repeatedly in the economic and social structures of ancient Israel, especially in the laws found in the Torah. These patterns of 7 weren't random. They reflected a worldview where time, land, and labor and debt were all regulated in cycles meant to promote balance, rest, and justice. And like Israel was supposed to be a nation completely different from all the ones around it. And God intended originally like for them not to have a king, but obviously they wanted a king, and we all know that didn't turn out very well for them. And they were supposed to have judges, but then some of the judges were corrupted. And basically during that time, every man did what they thought was right in his own eyes, which is not, that usually results in quite a bit of chaos. So like how this pattern went was every 7th day was Rikuas, the Sabbath, and that no work was to be done not by just landowners but also servants, foreigners, and even animals. And the economic impact this had was built in labor limits and means universal rest, and that was prevented exploitation and burnout. And like if you're really overworked to have a lot of burnout, for one, you're gonna want to like sleep through all of Sabbath if that's their only day off, and you're gonna likely have a lot of stress. And that's where the health part comes in. Like a lot of stress can cause chronic stress, and chronic stress triggers the constant release of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which can lead to cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, hypertension, increased heart rate, and increased risks of stroke or heart attack. Also, it leads to immune system dysfunction, increased susceptibility to infections, colds, and chronic inflammation. Mental health disorders, anxiety, depression, and chronic fatigue, musculoskeletal pain, tension, headaches, and backaches. Metabolic issues, weight gain and increased risk of diabetes, and sleep disorders and insomnia and poor sleep quality. Chronic stress is linked to a vast range of health issues, with some studies estimating that up to 90% of all health problems are related to stress. It affects almost every bodily system, acting as a contributing factor to major illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, rather than a single ailment. And all of these can be caused and inflamed by aggravated stress, which overwork and burnout really are bad for. And God didn't create us to be like robots in a constant working state. Let's look up Genesis 1:26. And can someone read it?
And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth."
So I really like that Bible verse because it says that God created us in His image. Like He created us to be like Him. Like He didn't create us to be like angels or like robots or something. Like He didn't create us to be in a constant working state. Like we are not designed to be constantly working without any rest. There's a thing there's a smoking shop, and they had this monkey that was like, they had made it so it smoked cigarettes. And eventually it was overworked and worked, and one day it just stopped working. And God didn't design us to be like that. Like, He wants us to have rest. Obviously, don't smoke either. But we're supposed to have rest, because if God wanted robots, He could easily have just created robots. And we wouldn't need to eat, sleep, have eyesight. God created a whole world. He spent like 6 days creating this world for us. Like He wants us to rest at least and enjoy it, not just constantly be work. And today our world is like so oriented on, I need to make the most money, I need to be the best at this, I always need to get ahead, and like get ahead at all costs, even like if that means like neglecting your family, like putting others down. Like the end goal is always to be like super rich and like super powerful. But like, what's the point of having all of that? Like, when because like, money can't like buy happiness or love, or just because you're really rich doesn't mean you're going to be really healthy. So you might have all this money, and then you could like die of a stroke or something, and then you wasted your whole life trying to get to this point, and then it's all gone in a minute, and then like no one's going to really remember you or have any good memories of you, because they're just going to remember you're always working ahead to like get ahead, and like, so instead of like doing that, like spend time with your families and like do actual meaningful things that like will leave more of an impact. And some people's excuse to that is like, well, I would rest, but I need to make money, and Sabbath is the best day to do so. But this is a study done on Chick-fil-A. I'm sure all of us know what that is, but for those that don't know, it's a restaurant, but I'm pretty sure it sells like a lot of things related to chicken. But I could be wrong. Sorry, because I know you have chickens. And Chick-fil-A runs on a 7-day cycle. They are all closed on Sundays. Yes, I know it's not Sabbath, but still like the 7 days. That's still what they know here. Chick-fil-A locations far surpass competitors in revenue per store, with averages around 9.3 to 9.4 million for non-mall locations. And comparing that to rivals, McDonald's U.S. locations average roughly 3.7 million in sales, while Taco Bell, which also for those that love Taco Bell, is in the top 8 worst restaurants on the earth. During outreach yesterday, Corin and Jacob were discussing their love for the restaurant, and I happened to bring that up, and I was threatened that I would be kicked out of the car. And last year at family camp, Kevin had a Taco Bell, and we were talking about how terrible it was. And then I was told to jump off the side of the boat. Well, all this makes Chick-fil-A the dominant leader in per-store sales. Total system sales, well, McDonald's is still the largest chain overall in total system revenue. Chick-fil-A has grown to become the third largest, behind McDonald's and Starbucks in total sales, with over $21 billion in 2023. So yes, they make more per store, but there's less stores of them, so they make less total. But per store that they each have, they make way more than all the other stores do. And they rest on Sunday. They're all closed on Sunday. Other stores that are also closed on Sunday, if you didn't know, are Hobby Lobby. And we love, mostly my sister and mom like going there. Our dad doesn't like me to go there because we waste too much money on things we don't
Like my mom.
Well, we don't need them, but it's fun to have. And probably when I make money one day, I'll agree with him, but for now, I'm on my mom's side. Also, another story about someone that was working on Sabbath, which is more relevant to, is this happened over in Asia. And a few years ago, we were reading this devotional by Eddie Hare, I'm pretty sure. And I couldn't find the exact story in it, and I tried looking it up online, but my whole family confirmed this. So there's a story of a man who was, over there needs to be some backstory. Over there, they have wild water buffalo, kind of like how we have deer, and farmers always have deer wander through fields occasionally, or your garden. We used to have deer in our garden, then we got dogs, and the deer thankfully vanished. So over there, it's not uncommon and pretty normal to have wild water buffalo occasionally wander into your field. So over there, their fields are their livelihoods. So if a water buffalo's eating the rice or something they're growing, that's causes as more of a problem. Because everything over there is on a way smaller scale. Everything in America is as big and large as possible. So the farmer he was out working on his field on Sabbath, and he saw 3 water buffalo wander into his field, and he didn't really think anything of it. It was just oh, here's some water buffalo. So he went over to chase them away, and then 2 of them left, but 1 of them stayed. Now, water buffalo are known to be rather extremely aggressive in 2022. They also were nicknamed Black Death by tourists because they caused 12% of all tourist injuries. And they're known to to gang up and kill lions that try and attacking them and stuff. You don't really want to get on their bad side. And they're the size of a cow, so they can do quite a bit of damage. So but then when this water buffalo stayed, it didn't seem aggressive towards her or anything. So then he thought, well, maybe it's just used to being around people more. But the more he tried to chase it away, nothing happened. Nothing seemed to faze it. He was throwing rocks at it, yelling at it, and his neighbors were watching him and laughing because he couldn't seem to get this water buffalo out of their field, and none of them had ever had problems before. So they're all out there kind of watching him, kind of making fun, haha, you can't get this out of our field. But eventually they got bored and left, and eventually, after a while of him trying to get this out of his field, the buffalo opened its mouth and it asked him why he was working in his field on Sabbath. And I don't know about you guys, but I know if a buffalo would start talking to me, my first instinct would be to turn around and either find a really tall tree or run as fast as I could out of there. But this man is braver than I am because he decided that he was going to answer it. So he did answer it. And he had a conversation a bit about it, why he was working in his field on Sabbath, which he's brave for it because I would never have done that. But long story short, his family started keeping the Sabbath, and his neighbors were worried that he was gonna not get his fields in because over there, you have to get your crops harvested before. Well, rice needs water to grow, but so during the dry season, they flood their fields, but then you have to get all the rice harvested before all the water dries up. So his neighbors were worried that, and like over there, they don't have tractors or anything, like tamed water buffalo and stuff are like their tractors. So like, and like they don't have hired people to do their fields. It's just like the family's thing. So it's really important that they get their crops in on time. Otherwise, like they're kind of like in a hard place till the next growing season. So the whole village was worried that now that he started keeping Sabbath, is that he wasn't gonna get his crops in on time. But we all know that God would provide. Long story short, he got all his crops in on time, just as while keeping Sabbath, just as well as his neighbors did.
Amen.
And let's look up Matthew 6:34, and can someone read that?
It says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow. For tomorrow you will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
Yes, like that Bible says, like we don't need to worry about if God's going to take care of us or anything. For one, worrying causes stress, and like I said earlier, stress isn't good for us. But God will provide for us, like, and there's another Bible verse that just says, like, the birds don't worry about what they'll have tomorrow or where they'll sleep. So like, and if God can take care of the little sparrows, He'll take care of us too. And we do not need to worry. So, and God would never ask us to do something that's impossible for us. And this is in the Bible, somewhere now. I found a comb in my Bible. Somewhere in Ellen White it says that, I lost my train of thought. Like in Ellen White it says that, like, we don't need to worry about, like, tomorrow. And, then like God was never going to ask us to do something that He knows is impossible for us to do, and because like God's a God of love, like He loves us, and He created us, so He's not going to demand stuff of us that He knows is not possible. And so like He would not ask us or have created Sabbath if He knew that it was impossible for us to keep. So God will take care of us if we keep the Sabbath. And so long we put in the effort to try and keep the Sabbath and have a relationship with Him, He will do everything in His power and beyond to make it work. Because like He wants to take care of us and be our friend. So long we just show the effort to do it, we are covered. And now sometimes we'll fail, like sometimes you'll forget to have morning devotion. I'm not judging anyone because like I forget that a lot. But God will always be willing to give us a second chance and start over again. And so like the Sabbath is like very possible for us to follow. So it should be a good day for us. And it has like more than one benefit. Like we get to know Jesus, and it helps keep us healthy. And it's kind of like a free doctor's visit. And for you parents out there, you all know how expensive medical bills can be. Luckily, I rarely have to go to the hospital, but when we were younger, I've given my sister quite a few concussions. Accidentally! One time we were in my grandma's basement, and we had been watching the Olympics, ice skating, and we had the figure skating, and we had the idea that, we can replicate that on our rollerblades. So I picked her up, and everything was going really well, and then we don't really know what happened, but the next thing, she was on the floor, blacked out, not responding to anything. And my first response was, I'll just wait a bit and see if she wakes up. And then when she didn't wake up for like a minute, and I thought, maybe I should go find my mom. And then it turns out she had gotten a concussion. And then other times, in the snow, we live in the country, so we like to climb trees, and then in the wintertime, we had quite the imaginations. We didn't have TV, so we made up our own stuff, whereas I think sometimes our parents really wonder where we got our ideas from. So we would like climb up these trees and over the snow, so then we'd jump out of the trees and hope the branches would catch us. So the snowplow had plowed a bunch of snow up, and it was like red snow, but we didn't that wasn't in our head. So it was like red snow means snow, and then it snowed on top of that. but the snow under that had frozen. So I jumped out of this tree and then split down the branches and then expecting to land in a nice pile of soft snow, and instead it was rather hard. So, and then I don't know if I really got a concussion, but I got the wind knocked out of me quite a bit. And again, we thought, I guess I better judge. We didn't think we should really tell Mom it until like a few years later, when we knew we were going to get in trouble for doing dumb things. So we've had close calls when we could have ended up in the hospital a few times. But my point is, like, keeping the Sabbath when you don't have idiot kids named Matthew, that's kind of like a free doctor's visit, because it keeps you healthy and it helps you have a relationship with God, and it overall has a great benefit in general. And the more you're like Jesus, the kinder you're going to be, and the more people are going to be around you. And then hopefully you can be like lights to them. And then when they ask you like why you seem so happy, then you can explain to them like what you believe, and then they can start going to church too. So hopefully you all gained a blessing from what I was saying, and hopefully it answers some questions. And thank you, and last thing, thank you to the North Lake Church for letting me speak.
Amen.